The Canadian federal government announced it's banning more types of firearms and wants to send some of those guns to the Ukraine. In other words, the federal government is going to steal your legally acquired property and redistribute it as they see fit, a practice best known around the world as communism. I'm Rachel Parker, and you're watching The Rachel Parker Show. Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Parker. Welcome back to The Rachel Parker Show. We have a lot to cover with this latest big announcement from the Liberal government announcing that hundreds of more types of firearms will be banned, and they're claiming they are going to send these guns to the Ukraine. Joining me today to discuss is Rod Giltaca, the CEO and Executive Director of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Rod, thank you so much for being here today. I'm wondering if you can just start right off the hop by explaining, hundreds of more firearms have been added to this list of banned guns. What types of firearms are newly banned under this latest announcement?
Well, interestingly enough, it's the remainder of centerfire semi-automatics that weren't banned back in May 2020 and also weren't banned by the RCMP. Subsequent to that, the RCMP banned another 800 or 900 models after that original ban back in May 2020. And so there were still some firearms left. In fact, the Liberal government had bragged that there were still 29,000 models of firearms available. You're not losing anything. Just go out and buy guns that aren't on the list. So that's what Canadians did. People that owned those firearms that still wanted to compete or hunt using those types of firearms went out and replaced them, basically trusting the ever trustworthy Trudeau government for their word, and then only for them to turn around a couple of days ago and ban basically everything else. And there's a lot of Canadians that had spent $2, $3, $10,000 replacing these guns just so they could just be left alone and continue their lifestyle. And now the government, in a huge sweeping ban a few days ago, banned the rest of those. So I don't know. And in fact, let me just add this. Sorry for going on, but I heard from a journalist that one of the government officials had said, "Oh, don't worry, there's still 18,000 models left." So I don't know if they think all this is funny, but that's what they're up to.
So it sounds like the additional firearms that have been banned are primarily used in Canada in sport shooting and in hunting. And are they also used in farming?
In farming, like protecting livestock,
Yeah.
absolutely they are. And they're centerfire semi-autos, and a wide collection of 22 caliber rifles too. So of course it's a complete, uh, I don't know. I don't like inflammatory terms, but it's total propaganda and manipulation to say that these are weapons of war used by soldiers to kill other soldiers, and we're going to send them off to Ukraine. Well, yeah, it's ridiculous. They're banning all semi-autos and anything that has a tactical look to it, based on appearance. So it's a real slap in the face to public safety and slap in the face to licensed gun owners.
Okay, so you touched on one of the craziest parts of that announcement, that bit about them saying, these are weapons that are used in war, and we are actually going to steal your property and we're going to send it to Ukraine. They need the guns, they need it to fight Russia. What do you make of that?
Well, it's more psychological manipulation. This is the most manipulative, corrupt government in the history of the country by far, by an enormous margin. And I don't want to seem partisan by saying that. It's just demonstrably true. And so with this government, and in my experience, especially with Bill Blair, um, I guess their idea is, this is going to be very unpopular with a lot of people. This is a last ditch effort to try to help themselves out in the polls. I don't think it's working. Their GST gimmick didn't work. And they're trying to pack all of the talking points into one effort. So they're like, well, if you're against the gun ban, then you must be on the side of Putin, because we're going to be sending these 22s and semi-automatic rifles with barrels that are way too long over to Ukraine to help, fight the Russians. I mean, it's all, and to to anyone that's not intellectually disabled, it is absurd. It's laughable. But we still have 20% of the population voting for liberals, so it's I guess that's what they're counting on.
So it sounds like you're saying this bit about Ukraine is actually just government propaganda and that Ukraine, in fact, does not want to use or will use these guns to fight their war against Putin.
Oh, of course not. Militaries have standardization for a reason. All of their firearms, all of their rifles are set up the same way. All of their ordnance is set up the same way. All of it, everything has to be consistent so you can pick up whatever off the ground if need be and use it. So they're not going to be sending 22s, GSG 16s, a 22 caliber rifle, and then send somebody's AR-15, a Daniel Defense AR-15 with a certain setup on it, and then send them some kind of Chinese Norinco AR-15, which we had available in Canada back in 2020. It's completely ludicrous. It's not attached to reality whatsoever. And I think it's just another example of the contempt that these people have for everyday Canadians. They're literally calling you stupid, telling you the most absurd, crazy stuff, expecting you to believe it and prepare to cancel you if you don't believe it. And I think that I guess the good news, Rachel, is that Canadians are sick and tired of it. No matter what the Conservatives do, they are soaring in the polls they're on their way for 2 years. They've been looking at supermajority level performance in the next election, despite everything that the Liberals are doing. And interestingly enough, they keep doubling down. They keep lying more. And they're wondering why it's not working. So it's a real mess.
Okay, so I want to take a step back and look at your legal challenges. I know that you guys are in court all day today. You were in court all day yesterday fighting the original gun ban that was made a few years back. Can you give me an update on that case?
Well, today is our last day in the courtroom. This is the federal appeals court that is having another look at the decision. So on our original court case, we lost. Justice Kane came out with a very strange decision. Not a lot of legal reasoning there, which is, I think it's unusual. I'm not a lawyer, but it's my understanding that that's quite unusual. I can only speculate why. Anyway, and I don't want to speculate here because we have a case still in the courts. We were given leave to take our case to the Federal Court of Appeal, which it is in right now. And we're hoping to have a decision. I don't know we are completely helpless when it comes to the timeline. I would hope that it's in the next few months and it's not 3 years, 3.5 years or whatever it was as it was in the last case. But basically, if we're successful, the order in council back in May 2020, and I believe subsequent order in council, like the one a few days ago, would be nullified as basically as illegal. The government does not have, this is our contention, does not have the authority to ban guns via an order in council. It has to do it through legislation because of something that's written in the criminal code. So if we win, this stuff should go away. What that actually looks like, I don't know, because I'm not sure that anybody knows, but we'll have to skin that cat when we get to it. But that's where we're at.
To your point, if you were to win, that this latest order in council about the guns that they want to send to Ukraine would also be nullified. If you were to lose, would you be able to put forward a new appeal for this latest order in council? Or if you were to lose, would basically then the federal government have the right to ban these weapons under the latest order in council as well?
So if we lose, but there's no new case. So that legal question will have already been answered. But it depends heavily on what the decision, how it's written, what the decision is from the appeals court. Because if we believe that the appeals court has made a mistake, like we believe that Justice Kane did in our original case, then we will apply for leave to go to the Supreme Court of Canada. And we're prepared to go all the way because this has to be resisted on every front forever until this is over. Now, as far as if we lose and the decision looks pretty conclusive, we may not be given leave to go to the Supreme Court. But regardless of that, we have all kinds of other projects forming up right now to oppose this and to make sure that the Liberals not only lose the next election, because the Conservatives really don't need help from us to win the next election. We've done other things in the past, but we will make sure that we do as much damage to the Liberal Party, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois for doing this to law-abiding Canadians, that hopefully there is an overwhelming supermajority Conservative government, and then they will have a chance to show that they really care about the difference between right and wrong, not just winning elections or not winning elections.
I wonder if, and you guys might not have moved on to this because I know you're in the middle of this current legal challenge, but specifically, you're saying we want to do as much damage as possible, specifically on the fact that the government has said that they want to steal these firearms and send them to Ukraine. I feel like there is almost something that could be challenged in and of itself within that, because to me, it just feels it's so immoral, first of all, that the government is essentially stealing, Canadians' legally acquired property that they had to really jump through a bunch of hoops to get those firearms in the first place. And now they're telling them, we're just gonna steal them from you. We're actually sending them to another country. Like that to me feels so immoral. And I wonder if something could be done on that specifically.
Well, if there's an opportunity to start another court case, we will find out and we will do that. So there's nothing that we won't do within legal means to oppose the government, because it's morally it's worse than wrong. It's just it's incredible. These are strange times. So we will fight them in the court of public opinion. We will fight them in the courts, and we will fight them politically. And we're never going to give up right to the last day.
What is your recommendation to firearms owners right now who are going to be impacted by the bans?
Okay, so there's a couple of things going on. Number one, I would recommend that you write a letters to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Public Safety, to Bill Blair, telling him how ridiculous he is. That would be nice. That's more of an entertainment thing. But obviously, if you have a Liberal MP, write a strong worded letter that says this is absolutely morally wrong. It is reprehensible. You need to stop doing this immediately. Whatever, just let them. That's not going to turn them around, but let them know that you will do everything in your power to make sure they never hold public office again. You'll work for free for the opposition party or whatever you can come up with to let them know how upsetting this is to you. Make it short. And also make sure that if your MP is a Conservative Party MP, you send them a letter too, and let them know that you fully expect them to roll back all of the bans, and then also that you want them to rewrite the Firearms Act to make sense, to make it have a demonstrable positive effect on public safety, and you are not going to tolerate punitive, imaginary gun laws just for political purposes, that you want them to take action, because it's really important that they do that work as soon as they get in. And the other thing I just want to remind gun owners, the Liberals are out of time. Okay, they do not have time to take these guns from individuals, even if the election goes all the way to next October. So it's highly likely that you will still have possession of these guns when they are gone. So that's really important. So all is not lost yet, but we don't stop the fight. So while this is inconvenient, while it's frustrating, and nobody's as frustrated as I am, I assure you, let's just keep your eye on the prize. Write those letters. More will be coming from the CCFR. We have more plans that we're going to be rolling out within the next probably 7 days. So we'll have other ways that you can participate in pushing back against this as well.
Rod, I'm wondering a little bit about the long-lasting impact of this all, and in that sense, I mean, I have some friends who are firearms owners who are feeling really frustrated by this, but I remember even when the first firearms ban was announced, I had a couple friends who they had put deposits down on new guns, and essentially those guns ended up being banned later on, and, the manufacturers just sort of said sorry, and, they lost their deposit. Like, is it gonna become impossible for Canadians to get the firearms that they want over time, even if this legislation is reversed by, or not legislation, rather, it's just an order in council, but even if that is, found to be illegal, or even if the next Conservative government that we expect will likely happen decides to reverse it, is there going to be a situation where Canadians can't get their hands on the firearms they want because this Liberal government has really just driven out manufacturing for it?
Well, if we win this case, I expect the Liberal government to try to do something else. And I don't know exactly what that would be. But let's say we were to win this case and they're like, okay, well, we're out of tricks right now. as I said earlier, we don't really know what that looks like. It's like, okay, well, you can use all your guns. Can you take your AR-15 to the range? Because that's the only place you could have shot it anyway. All of our registration certificates were nullified. So I don't know whether the firearms program needs to reissue those. Maybe the non-restricted, you can take them and use them for hunting and sport shooting again anyway. We don't know exactly what that would look like. But either way, I think if we get to the next election, all this gets rolled back, I think, and this is just my opinion, and some people do share it, we will see a resurgence of sport shooting and of firearm ownership like we've never seen. Because at least you would know if the Conservatives won a very clear majority, if not a super majority, you know that you're probably going to be safe for 6, 7, 8 years, and that your life won't be destroyed by people trying to create some kind of political wedge. So I think it's all going to come back quite virulently, and I think there'll be a lot of happiness there. I think it'll be a really a positive time, and all of these sports will come back and they'll probably expand. So I'm trying to stay positive because it's not easy to do that under times like this, but I do think that things will turn around, and the Liberals are gonna look back and go, "I don't know why we did any of that. We lost anyway. We lost the confidence of Canadians. We made fools of ourselves, and look at it now." That's our goal for sure.
Okay, so you guys, you're fighting this stuff tooth and nail. How are you funding all these lawsuits and other projects that you're working on?
We are 100% funded by individual firearm owners and like gun stores. There are no big gun manufacturers in Canada. It's funny because our political adversaries call us, the the gun manufacturing lobbyists. Like I don't think we, I'm not sure that we ever really got a donation from any sizable manufacturer because there's not a lot of them in Canada. But we are a grassroots organization that is funded by individual gun owners, so this lawsuit that we're appealing is probably sitting up at around $2.5 million. No lawsuit of that size has ever been launched or carried out by a gun group in Canadian history. It's quite momentous. But again, we're if people support us, we can do these big things, and yeah, that's how we're funded.
Rod, thanks so much for your time today.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that was Rod Giltaca, the CEO and Executive Director of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. A very informative interview. I'm curious, let me know in the comment section below, where do you guys think this will go? Do you think that the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights is going to win its challenge to have those ordering councils dropped? Or do you think that they will lose and that this will continue to carry on until we hopefully and likely see a conservative government at least by October? All right, now I want to move into our comment section. I'm going to take a look at some of your comments from last week's episode. Last week, I had Chris Sims, the Alberta director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, on to discuss her testimony at the Canadian Heritage Committee as it looks at the validity of funding the CBC. Remember, Canadian taxpayers give the CBC $1.4 billion. And of course, I had Kaylin Ford on. She is a former United Conservative Party candidate who was ruthlessly slandered by the Alberta NDP and the media when she ran for the party back in 2019 after some text messages, some private text messages she had with someone she thought was a friend were selectively edited to make her appear like a really horrible person, which if you saw her on my show, you know that she is absolutely not. She is very intelligent, very thoughtful and articulate, and it was a great interview, and you guys certainly had thoughts on the interview. User at Jensible said, "This woman is deserving of high praise. An employer should be happy to employ a lady with such a strong moral compass. Alberta NDP are a bunch of malicious bullies, corrupt." You're absolutely correct. And I'm not sure if you guys all know this, but Kaylin Ford has actually been founding charter schools around the province. Can't quite remember how many she has, but they had at least one in Calgary and they were looking to open one in Edmonton. I think that one is open now. And they are extremely popular. I know that she said that there's huge wait lists both in Calgary and in Edmonton for the charter schools. So the good news here is that she went on to do some really amazing things with her life after being so ruthlessly slandered in the media. Barbara Jury said, "What a runaround this poor woman has had. She deserves a lot of credit for persevering with this." User Dixie Beasley said, "Heartbreaking story. Mrs. Ford is intelligent and inspiring." And then finally, user at laissez faire said, "This needs to be the norm. If someone accuses you of being racist, you should be able to sue them into oblivion." So, yeah, just a couple thoughts here. I mean, it's very impressive that Kaylin was able to persevere with all this, as you guys rightly noted. I don't know what it would have done to me. I think it would be really difficult for anyone in that situation not to sort of just wallow and fade into depression when your life is just ripped apart like that, and people don't want to be associated with you any longer. That would be really difficult, and I'm really glad to see that this is finally seeming to be coming out the underside, although obviously she still has a lot of a long legal battle ahead of her. And then for this last bit about being racist, I just feel like the meaning of the word racist is like completely lost. Like nowadays, if you're conservative, you just kind of expect to be called a racist, and it doesn't mean anything because the word has not only been overused, but it's just been improperly used for so long to the point that it has lost meaning. I do know, however, that if someone calls you a Nazi and you're not in fact a Nazi, that you can successfully sue on that front. I've heard a couple stories about that, but I think it might be harder to sue for being called a racist just because the word has become so meaningless in the last few years. All right, everyone, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining the show. Don't forget to let me know in the comment section below what you think will happen with the CCFR's challenge. I will be back with some more content for you guys tomorrow on Rachel and the Republic. Hope that you have a great week, and God bless.